Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we just wrapped up practice today as the team gets ready for Appalachian State. Also doing interviews. Wide receivers coach Rob Likens spoke. I'll provide some comments on some of the things that he had to say. And as players, Charleston Rambo, Justice Oluwashon, and Takori Couch also spoke to the media afterwards. And some standout things during our 20-minute viewing period that stood out to me. First off, Mike Harley, they're expecting him to be ready. He was in a non-contact red jersey today. So I would expect him to be there. Coach Likens did mention, look, he's going to be fine. He's okay. So it sounds like nothing to worry about with Mike in this one. And based on some of the things that happened during the Zion Nelson situation, Coach Diaz did mention he was very positive, felt like Zion would play in the game, spoke very highly about that, and coaches too. And then he did, and he played the whole time. So I think you've got to take that in determining if Mike's going to play and just kind of move forward. You guys heard me, I was skeptical that Zion was going to play, but you got to take the coach's word for it on this one and moving forward, and then we'll just kind of see. So that's just some notes on Mike. Things in practice that stood out to me with Justice is, he played for DJ Scaife at right tackle during the game. However, at practice today, we saw him at right guard, kind of moving Navon out. And then also at tackle, they put Jared Williams in there, and he's a guy that we expected to start, but he didn't play much at all in the game. I think he was listed on the participation report, but I didn't see him out there, and Pro Football Focus didn't have him as an official snap on offense. But that's something to watch for in this one. I do remember Navon Donaldson saying in fall camp that he was getting some reps at center, and I don't know if they're going to make that move. I didn't see it today during our viewing period, but maybe something to watch for down the line, or maybe just that it's at least a possibility to look for. But everything else kind of, the same thing with the offensive line. Zion Nelson at left tackle, Jalen Rivers at left guard, Gaynor at center. So nothing really different there. As I'm just walking on campus here, kind of wrapping this thing up after practice. Other things I noticed, at practice was a little bit with Leonard Taylor. I know many of you are curious why he didn't play. He was actually in a scout team uniform today. So it just seems like he's a guy that's on that third team, and we'll see if he gets off of there moving forward. He's still a guy I think you should be excited about. And we'll see how things go with his development and, if he makes plays and the whole thing. So some other notes at practice, I thought that they were being very aggressive on defense, kind of just listening to Coach T-Rob go through the drills, just really getting on these guys, and kind of watching James Williams a little bit and Cameron Kitchens. But it's still Bubba Bolden and Gervin Hall in that top unit. Bubba's not suspended even though he was ejected last game, but because it happened in the first half, he'll be able to play in this one. However, I did notice that Bubba was doing a little extra running after practice today. Coach Diaz didn't speak to the media, so we weren't able to find out, the reason behind that, but I wonder if it does have something disciplinary to do with the ejection. I don't know. We've not heard that in the past with previous ones, but I do wonder if that's part of it, or maybe he was just getting some extra work in, who knows. But just want to note that. After practice also, and it's just something small, but I did see Jake Garcia talking with Coach Likens. I found that to be interesting. I always find it interesting when players speak to coaches that aren't their position group, just to kind of just curious about that. Obviously, the passing game coordinator and the wide receivers coach. But yeah, you definitely understand with Coach Likens, that he would want to talk to the quarterback. But I just thought it was interesting. We couldn't hear what he was saying, but just something I noticed after practice, something small. And I do want to talk more about Coach Likens. A couple things that stood out to me during his interview with the reporters. He was really praising Xavier Restrepo for how he performed in the game, making plays, and he said he expected that. It's something he sees him do all the time in practice or when they line up for scrimmages. He's just one of those guys that makes plays, and even though the opponent with Alabama and Xavier having a role in the game, he said he wasn't surprised to see him make a play. So I thought that was interesting. The coaches really do rave about Xavier and his ability to make plays, and so we'll see how Xavier develops, kind of right now working in that backup slot role behind Mike Harley. Other things too that Coach Likens had to say was about Charleston Rambo. Just feels like he kind of brought up the point that these guys are a lot of these guys are fast, and they have to learn what it takes to be successful at the next level from high school. And he talked about that in discussing Charleston. So he feels like Charleston's a guy with speed, but yet needs to work on maybe some of the details to be an effective player. and maybe just make sure he's on point. And I've kind of talked about Charleston a little bit too. And Coach Likens didn't mention it, but we have seen him drop passes at times in practices. So just wants to clean those things up and kind of be a little bit sharper to maybe make plays downfield. And that's something I asked Coach Likens about in the game. And that's partly, kind of the topic of conversation right now. Did Miami make enough plays downfield? Did they go downfield enough? Coach Likens said yes, there's certain times they could have maybe been a little bit more, had a little bit more separation. But also noted that sometimes in opening games that guys run different routes than what they're supposed to. He used the example of maybe you have a 20-yard comeback and they run it and stop it at like 12. And I think those things are all, you got to be real precise in the passing game at that receiver. So he did like some things that he saw. He was impressed with how Keyshawn Smith made a catch over the middle. And, there was, mentioned Restrepo, but just overall, certainly they've got to help out the quarterback more, make more plays. Once again at practice, noticing this team really working on the short game, passes to the flats, passes on outs, short outs. So I think that's going to be something that they try to do throughout the year. I do think that they want to expand it a little bit more. Likens said there were some opportunities that they could have went downfield a little bit more. He said there were opportunities or they wanted to go downfield a little bit more. It just didn't happen. So we'll see how that thing progresses moving forward. I know many of you are curious, and understandably so, of just Miami's offense and if they can be one of these explosive offenses with a veteran quarterback and maybe some speed on the outside. So we'll see how the things develop there. One of the things that Corey Couch mentioned, and he didn't speak very long, I was able to ask him his thoughts on the Appalachian State receivers, because after watching them play and talking to Ethan Joyce, who covers the team, shout out to him for jumping on the channel. And also, anybody who wants to watch that preview of the game, you can watch that on here. Did a preview video. But one of the things that stood out to me with Appalachian State is I know they can run the ball. They've got some good backs there. But I think what's going to surprise some people is I think that they can throw the ball. I think they've got 4 receivers that can provide a threat. I mentioned in the video that they got one guy who's going to be their kick returner, runs a 10.29 in the 100. So I think that's something Miami's going to have to pay attention to. They can't just load up in the box and expect to stop this team, because I do think that they've got some ability on the outside. So I asked Corey, look, these are my thoughts, and I asked Corey his thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Appalachian State receivers? And frankly, he just said he hasn't watched much of them just yet, but did say he knows that they're older guys, veteran guys, so he expects them to do things right. So I think the team will kind of get more into scouting and paying attention to the personnel a little bit later in the week. But I just wanted to ask, I didn't know if he had already started watching them and maybe he had an impression of what they had to bring, because I do think it's something to watch for in this game. Very curious to see how the defensive backs in general respond after struggling last week against Alabama. Is it just one of those one-off games against a good team, or is this going to be kind of an issue moving forward? So just a few things to watch for, kind of my instant reaction after practice, after doing interviews as well. Shout out to everybody who's been watching the channel, watching the videos. Hit the like button if you like these videos. Hopefully you guys like the drill videos as well. So thanks again, and take care.